Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 230, recorded November 9th, 2019. Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I am your host, my name is Tyson, and joining me today as always is my partner in crime here at the Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about Mr. Robot and The Good Place as usual. We're going to be talking about episode 5 of season 4, 405 Method Not Allowed of Mr. Robot, and episode 7 of season 4, Help Is Other People of The Good Place. So let's just kick things off right away with Mr. Robot. Very interesting episode, very interesting conceit. There were 2 lines of dialogue in the entire episode. One at the very beginning of the episode, one at the very end. The rest of the episode was completely silent.
That's what makes the episode so great, is that it was a silent episode.
It's tension, but it's also very themed, like, which is interesting, because it's the name, like I said, the name of the episode, they're all based on error messages, method not allowed. So it's, I guess, the method is dialogue. Speech is the method that's not allowed in this episode. But it's also themed in what those 2 lines of dialogue that exist in the episode are, which is at the very beginning of the episode, Darlene ends up picking up Elliot from where he was at the end of last week's episode, and she says to Elliot, "We don't have to talk." From that point on, there's no talking in the episode.
Until the very end of the episode.
When Krista, Elliot's former therapist, encounters Vera, and he says, "It's time we talk." So it's bracketed between these 2 points about talking. We don't have to talk, and it's time we talk. And between that, there's no talking. It's kind of brilliant. It's kind of gimmicky at the same time. It could be criticized as being gimmicky or something. But because it worked, because they did it well.
Really well. It to the point where I think it actually would have, ruined the episode if they were talking throughout it.
Mm-hmm. We should say, though, there was one other line of dialogue in this episode that was repeated several times. It's all about that bass, no trouble.
Oh. Yes. Forgot if it was it was playing, it was a ringtone.
It was in Dom's storyline. Yeah, it was a police officer's ringtone.
Yeah, on the phone. Okay, yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, was Dom listening to that, or was that on the police station?
It was a police officer in Dom's storyline. So Dom was sent out basically to investigate the van that Elliot burned, and with the people that were trailing him. They wanted to check out who it was, and so they sent Dom out to do that, as she's now like an agent of the Dark Army against her will.
Against her will.
And so she goes out there, and they had this police officer's ringtone that went off multiple times, and it was all set up as it was a plot device to use that ringtone to tell the story of how Dom ended up getting into the police system, basically. Like the first time we see her arrive on the scene with the van all burned out, hear the police officer's ringtone go off, and you see the police officer walk off to answer her phone. And you're like, oh, okay, so they're setting that up for something. Then later in the episode, you see Dom needs to get onto that person's computer, break into that person's computer, and so she sets up a screen logger on that person's computer, and she does it by taking her phone, putting it in a different room, calling it so that it has that ringtone and distracts her to get her to walk away. And so they use that as a plot device to tell this kind of story without any dialogue, basically.
Yes.
Well, besides the song lyrics being dialogue.
But we don't count that. Come on.
So that's one of the kind of little clever things they did. That was kind of a short side story in this episode, was the whole Dom stuff that ended with her getting a notification or something that with a picture of Darlene and Elliot saying that she had to track them or find them. But yeah, her storyline was basically, she saw a van on the corner of her street. She got called in for her first kind of job for the Dark Army, and she showed that she's quite competent at serving that role, even if she doesn't want to do it. And that was kind of her storyline in this episode. Another side story we had before we get into kind of the main story was Price.
Yeah, Philip, he was following some breadcrumbs being left for him
by White Rose, as far as to set up, where the appointment would be and stuff.
Yeah, where the meeting would be.
And so he had to get all that information put together. It was kind of like he got a text message saying he had to like go to E Corp, wait for like a trombone player, tip him $20, and then he'd get like, he went through this whole thing. He ended up having to get like a suit, and then at the very end he got a card basically telling him where and when the meeting was taking place.
Yeah, where and when the meeting was taking place.
Which he immediately sent to Elliot. Elliot, by the way, had sent him a message saying that Tyrell wasn't going to be coming to the meeting.
Yeah,
we know that because seemingly Tyrell is dead.
I mean, I'm going to assume Tyrell is dead because he apparently passed down the snow. And they just leave him there. So that to me says he's dead, But
then again, the police were investigating that burnt out van. So for all we know, he could have been found by somebody because of that.
But it's weird though, because dead or alive, they would have found him anyway. But they don't mention it. Nobody mentions it in this episode.
Well, it would be because they want to use it as a narrative surprise, Yeah, I'm with you in that I don't think he's alive. I'm just like, they didn't clearly state that he's dead.
Right.
They left it slightly ambiguous. You could say that that's just better from, I don't know, like a storytelling or poetic standpoint as far as like keeping it ambiguous, because if you over-explain things, it's kind of lame, but it also leaves it open to a show like this that can pull like weird twist on you that for all you know, he could just kind of pop up again, you just don't know. It's just the kind of show this is. You don't really know until you have confirmation that he's gone. You don't know.
Cause we've already done the whole Tyrell is missing, possibly dead thing. In at the beginning of season 2.
Yeah. And that's also part of why I think it's probably not the case.
Right, exactly.
I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Because we've already been down this road.
There's just no, it's not spelled out 100%. That's all we mean when we say seemingly instead of that he is dead,
Right.
Is just, who knows, they could have a little ace up their sleeve, But yeah, Price got that message, no other information as to why Tyrell wouldn't be there. But then when he ends up sending Elliot the message, he also writes in the message, like, Tyrell or not, the meeting's gonna be at this point.
Tyrell or not, the meeting's happened, so.
Yeah. And so that was kind of Price's storyline. So we've gone over Dom's and Price's storyline. Those were like kind of diversions. And now we're on kind of the main plot, which is we knew that the whole reason that Elliot did that whole date thing 2 episodes ago was so that he could get credentials to get into this VR company.
Yes.
You would need to get into their servers. And now we get them actually going to that. Now they don't actually have those credentials though.
No, they don't.
Which is the problem.
They don't.
So
they have to they have to hack their way in.
Yes, they have to trick their way in a way that they didn't originally plan to. And this is the kind of storyline that makes a silent episode like this work.
Right. Because
it's tension. Silence builds tension.
Yeah, it's tension. And they're in a situation where they can't be talking to each other anyway.
Yeah.
Because
and this is
yeah.
And this is also an episode where you get a lot more of physical action in this show than you normally do.
Yes.
Normally the action is watching Elliot type.
Yeah. Nor the action. There's a lot of typing in this episode too. There's a lot of typing action for people who love the sound of fingers on keyboards. We get a lot of that, but
you also get Elliot, trying to Darlene distracting a guard and Elliot having to basically rush into the building. And get past them unnoticed.
This is actually the perfect distillation into one episode of what the show is about.
Social engineering and hacking?
Yes, social engineering and hacking. This is perfect because you get both of them. And you get to see how they go the computer part goes hand in hand with it because we see Darlene manipulating the guards to get in. Mm-hmm. Elliot makes her a fake badge that looks authentic, but of course it doesn't work because, he'd have to actually hack into their systems, but it's cool how Darlene basically goes in with the fake badge and then when it doesn't work, distracts the guard by asking him for help with her badge. And then Elliot runs past her unnoticed, and he breaks into, and he gets into the server, and he adds Darlene to the system with proper credentials, and then her badge works.
Yes. So it's like you know what it feels like? It feels like one of those video games that's kind of got that like co-op but one player co-op game, you know? Where you have to like do something and then switch to the other person and then do something with that person and then switch back. That's kind of what this felt like. It was like this weird like tag team thing. It was really cool to watch, you know?
Right.
Cool to watch them tag teaming through it, you know? And then you have these moments of tension, you know, where like, as I'd mentioned, like when you have your clickety-clack keyboard action going on when Elliot and Darlene are getting into the main system, of course, you know, the guard noticing something's up is like entering the server room at that point. And then you see like, you know, there's a great shot where like he's standing literally in the next row and his flashlight is going through the kind of the holes in the servers, the air holes, and it's like lighting up like Darlene and Elliot's like faces. Like, that's just telling you, like, how close they are. They're, like, right on the opposite side of him. And they're clickety-clacking away as quietly as they can and trying to, like, find ways to extend their time and to keep themselves covered. Like, Elliot ends up seeing, I forgot what he sees. He sees something about, like, what's powering some, you know, like the lighting equipment or something in the room. And then he ends up hacking into that company remotely and, like, shutting off the power to the lights for the room, you know, just to give them like a moment to escape.
Right.
Undercover. Unfortunately, this guard wasn't the only guard there. Another guard came in on duty when he was kind of investigating what was going on. He radios that guard and says, "Hey, somebody got in here with my credentials. You need to call the police." So the police come to this building, and now they're like locked into this building. They're closed in. Elliot's like face to face with this guard, like through a door, as Elliot's trying to hold the door shut as the guard's trying to get in. Eventually what ends up happening is Elliot like forces his way out, like knocking the guard over, and runs out like past the police officers, which is terrifying when you think about it. It's like, what's the last thing you want to do if you're like, you know, trying to sneak past some people, to sneak past the police and the authorities? Is to like run right at them. And that's what Elliot does. Darlene ends up finding out that she can get past them. As she's trying to kind of hide from them, she ends up finding a bottle of water, somebody else's jacket, and there's like a gym in that building as well. And so she just kind of comes out looking like she had come from the gym, basically.
Yes, yeah, she comes out. Yeah, the whole thing is...
Which stretches suspension of disbelief a little bit.
A little bit. Well, the thing about that is Elliot had run out and distracted the police. You know, they got the police chasing him. As far as they know, as far as the appearance, it's actually brilliant because as far as like anybody is concerned, that's the guy they're looking for. That's who it was. They don't know that he's with Darlene. So when Darlene comes out, nobody's paying attention. So you could say it stretches credibility. Yeah, if people are like actually paying attention to her, then yeah, but nobody, all attention is on like Elliot. That's the guy. That's the guy that they were looking for. So they're not paying attention to her. So that's how she's able to get away with that.
It is kind of tense though, because she has to go by the guard that she had direct communication with when her badge wasn't working.
Oh yeah,
but now she's like not wearing a wig basically and wearing a different jacket, and that's all.
Yeah, it's tense because she has to rely on them being distractive and not being perceptive enough to connect the dots at that moment.
Yeah, you know, so she's like very slowly walking out, trying to look calm and cool while being like terrified at the same time.
Right. That's
really good performance. Yeah, you could say
that's the whole reason Elliot runs out of there and puts himself so that Darlene can just sneak out of there. He basically throws himself into the fire so Darlene can get out.
Yeah, very good performance by the actress who plays Darlene.
Yes.
You know, in that moment, it's pretty terrifying. You could see it on her face as she's trying to like, but it's very minimal. It's like you can see the terror on her face, but you can also see that she's trying not to show it at the same time.
Right.
But then you have just, you know, Elliot just running through New York, running out of breath, like you just hearing him desperately breathing as he's like trying to get away, watching as it cuts from one angle to another, and you see like how close they are, like just feet from him, like just about to get him, and how he's like, you know, zigzags around somebody, or like jumps in front of a car so that it like, the car blocks the path and then gets around, and is doing everything he can to create distance. He gets on a bus at one point, you know, and is only on the bus for like a stop.
Yeah, it's only.
But at least it gives him time to breathe, you know?
Gives us time to breathe, but the cops catch up to him. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, Jesus Christ. This actually, like, stretched credibility for me, because I'm like, Jesus, he has, like, the lungs of an Olympic runner, apparently. Like, holy shit. I don't think I could do that. I definitely couldn't do that.
Oh, I definitely couldn't.
I was like, I'd be done. But Elliot, man, he just did.
I would have been caught, like, I would have tried to bum rush past the door and I would have been caught, like, the second I walked back. Like, I would have been, like, a foot past the police officer I was trying to run past, and they would have grabbed me, and that would have been it.
Right? That would have been it. But that whole chase sequence is crazy.
He takes some hard hits, too. He gets hit by a car at one point.
Yeah, he gets hit by a car. He, like,
He falls down a few hill slopes.
He gets into an ice skating rink, and is, like, tripping all over himself in the rink, you know, like...
Yeah, that was really cool, too. Just watching him kind of sliding across the rink, trying to get by.
Yes.
To the other side.
And then finally he gets to a point where he's cornered, and he looks, and he's got nowhere to go except over this railing, you know, to the street below him. He looks down. Darlene's actually parked, because Darlene gets his GPS coordinates, obviously, because we know her phone's linked to his.
Yes.
And she's parked down there, and we see Elliot, he just jumps over the railing, and then we see him just, like, rolling off the freaking hill down to Darlene's car. It looks like it's very painful. He's taking a lot of hits. And then he just, like, scrambles inside Darlene's car, and they take off. It was not, like, a clean thing. It was not, like, some action thing where, like, they jump and he's okay. He jumps, and he, like, starts, like, fucking, just, like, tumbling down that hill. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it was the kind of thing that the people pursuing him didn't follow, you know?
Right.
It was a last-ditch desperation move, and he ended up getting away in the car with Darlene. We know that they got caught on surveillance at that point, though.
Yes, because Dom gets another text.
Yeah, because Dom got that message. But I love the scene when they're in the car and Elliot's, like, desperately breathing to catch his breath, and it's great performances on both of them. They're both just kind of scared, and they can't believe they got through it.
They actually got through it. Yeah, that was, like, the riskiest thing that they did, you know.
Yeah. And then Elliot kind of reaches over and grabs Darlene's hand, and it's just kind of like holding her hand as like some desperate grasp to, you know, like, to say like, oh God, I'm alive, you know?
Yeah, like, fuck, we're here. Because, if Elliot got caught by the police, he'd be dead. The Dark Army would kill him.
Yeah.
That'd be it. Game over. So
yeah, it's really crazy. It's just a powerful, tense-ass scene. Just a really well-done chase scene, too. Like, the way they did it with the camera cuts and the long shots and the, you know, the set pieces that they threw in, you know? Like, they just did such a good job of setting that up. I also liked that before Dom even got that message to go after Darlene and Elliot, before she got that message, like right before, she walks by and her family is watching TV, and you see on the TV it says like, you know, Christmas mayhem in Central Park or something, like on the TV. And it's showing the same locations that the chase was happening through. So they're covering this chase on the news.
Yeah,
I just thought that was kind of a cool little touch. Like, it's because it's kind of a blink and you miss it kind of thing.
Right, yeah, they're covering the news. Yeah, so Dark Army got traffic camera footage of Elliot and Darlene in the car, and they sent it to Dom, and Dom's kind of like, oh shit, because she knows these people.
Yeah, well, she's kind of in love with Darlene.
Yeah, she's kind of in love with Darlene.
We've noticed from last week.
So this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out now. And then finally we got like one more storyline to go through at the end of the episode.
Well, through the episode, it's not even worth re-mentioning much of the storyline, but we had little bits with Krista texting her boyfriend, talking about maybe ditching the family and just doing, you know, Christmas, just the two of them. Like, there's that kind of stuff going on. It's not really, there's nothing really that interesting. It's like her at a grocery store and her doing stuff. It's not really all that interesting.
No, it's not interesting. interesting. You're kind of like wondering, why are we watching this? You know, like.
But at the end, you see someone's kind of following her. When she starts to realize that, she kind of rushes, ends up dropping like a can of food. The person like walks across the street, picks it up. It's like a woman. She's got a bunch of tattoos on her hands and stuff. Clearly, like, you know, the impression they're giving is like gang affiliated in some way.
Yeah.
And she kind of holds up the can and is smiling at her. And she turns around, and right in front of her is Vera.
Yeah.
The drug dealer from season 1, who we saw in this episode, we saw in the season. We knew that he was going to reach out to Krista at some point.
Yeah, we knew he was going to reach out to Krista. I mean, as soon as I saw, like, Krista, like, even, like, the Monday, I knew exactly what was coming. And it was this. And then finally we get our second line of dialogue for the episode where he just says, it's time we talk.
Yes. And so that's the end of the episode.
Which is funny, too, because the 2 lines of dialogue in the episode are, at the beginning, it's like, you don't have to talk, and then it ends with, it's time we talk. So it's kind of like, so it's kind of like,
it brackets the episode.
It brackets the episode, so it's kind of like, okay, the talking stops now, and then, the talking resumes now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And like I mentioned at the beginning, it's also, the episode's called Method Not Allowed, so I guess the method is talking.
Yes. It was I think this was like my favorite episode of the season so far, just because this was pure Mr. Robot, and this was like so tense. There was so much tension, especially with
it's cool when Sam Esmail does something like this to kind of flex his chops.
Yes.
He did it, I think it was last season, where they did the episode where the whole thing was like a one-shot.
Yes, it was like one take.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whenever they do that, it's not actually one take. They hide the cuts.
No, but
somebody walks past the screen and it covers the camera.
The entire episode looked like it was done in one take.
Yeah. They call them, I think they call them oneers, is like the term that a lot of people will use to describe those. But
okay.
So they did a whole episode that was like a oneer, and it was all about, that one was about, you know, is it people in F Society masks, like storming through.
Yes.
Like E-Corp and, you know, like a riot, basically.
And I think we said at the time, we said that was like the best episode of that season when we watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was a really good episode.
So this is a different one, and it's, like I said, it's Sam Esmail showing his chops.
Yes, it is.
He's saying, like, just to remind you guys, I'm a good director.
I'm a good director.
And I know how to do this kind of shit. So, you know, and he put together a great episode. Everything was good about it. Sound design was great throughout the whole episode, because if you're not going to have dialogue, then your sound design needs to be really strong.
Yeah,
you know?
your sound design has to be, top notch.
The score was on point. I talked, I think it was either last week or the week before, about how saying that most of the time in this season so far, it hasn't really felt very Christmassy, considering it's Christmas season. That was, I think, pretty much completely remedied in this episode. Well, it felt very Christmassy.
Literally took place on Christmas Day, so you saw a lot of things. You saw, you know, like, Dom had like, Christmas cookies she was gonna take to her family, you know.
Yeah.
You had all these things throughout the episode that reminded you it was Christmas Day.
Things were decorated, though, which would have happened even before Christmas Day. Like,
right.
But here you could very much see them, like there's decorations or like winter activities. It really felt like it. But on top of that, the score was incorporating kind of Christmas-esque tonalities within the music and stuff that were like very subtle, but like they were there, because it was like this tense score, but then you'd have these kind of like bell kind of tones in there as well that kind of have that Christmas kind of feeling to them. So like, I like that they really got all of that together, and like the sound design and the way this was presented. And this really did feel like, you know, like I said, normally like it's like they say it's Christmas, maybe you'd see a Christmas tree, but it didn't really feel like anything Christmassy at all. And this is like the first episode, I think, this season where it really like, okay, this does feel like Mr. Robot Christmas. Like, this is the first one this season, I think, that really felt that way.
Right.
So yeah, I really enjoyed this. After last week was a little disappointing, this is kind of the opposite.
Right.
So I'm interested to see what we got left in the rest of this episode, which is only 5 episodes into the season. I think it's a full 13 episodes, I think, this season. It'll be interesting to see how much more they flesh out, because this meeting's taking place Christmas night, so it's almost like these episodes are quasi-real time at this point. Like, I imagine we'll probably have a few episodes just for Christmas Day, instead of like, you know, the next episode's the day after, or the next episode's the day after that, or something. It's gonna be like real compressed time-wise.
Right.
But one last thing I wanted to go over, and I'd done this before when I was, like, I have at the bottom of my show notes here, I got all of the air messages for, like, all the 400 air messages, basically. Like the 401, 402, like, that this episode is using for all their episode titles. Have used these so far, this season. And I just thought it's kind of interesting, if you go over the actual episode, the air messages that you know are going to eventually be the episode titles, it almost spells out a narrative. So I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to do that. So that's the one we just watched was 405, Method Not Allowed.
Right.
So here's the episode titles moving forward. If it's 13 episodes this season, which I think it is. The next one would be 406, Not Acceptable. 407, Proxy Authentication Required. 408, Request Timeout. 409, Conflict. That'll be the action episode. 410, Gone. That's like your moment where something goes completely wrong and all hope is gone, I'm guessing. 411, Length Required. 412, Precondition Failed. And 413, Payload Too Large. Isn't that almost like when you see those titles, doesn't that almost like spell out like a narrative in your head?
Yeah, it does.
It's kind of funny, but I just wanted to go over that real quick. It's kind of a brilliant, somewhat gimmicky, but it seems like he's doing it right kind of way he's tying in these air messages and episode titles, and not just doing it to do it, but like actually like the episodes seem to be themed to these titles, and it works. Like there's a narrative arc in there, it's just kind of crazy to think that it just kind of worked, that everything kind of fit together that way and is working.
Sam Esmail's a genius.
Yeah, but that's it for Mr. Robot. We're, of course, going to continue talking about it until the season's over. But let's move on to our other show now, which is The Good Place.
The Good Place.
Season 4, Episode 7, Help Is Other People. So yeah,
yes.
Let's talk about the episode. Last one had that kind of narrative structure with Bad Janet. None of that's kind of addressed. The Bad Janet aspect stuff isn't really addressed this episode at all.
Oh, yeah. But that's fine.
But what this episode does do is it covers the rest of the test. So this whole season's been this test. Even at the beginning of last season. It actually covers
the end of the test, because we start where this is the last day of the test.
Yeah. By the end, what I mean is like by the end of the episode, that's the end of the test. It's over now. It's interesting because this test started like in the last episode of last season, has been going through this whole season. We still got like 6 more episodes after this.
Yes.
But the big test is over.
But we still have 6 more episodes.
Yeah.
So we gotta see where this is gonna go.
Which is exciting, because if they're wrapping it up now, like I just thought they were gonna stretch that out through the season. But if they're wrapping that up now, then it's like, okay, well then that means they have like, there's something else coming outside of this test, which is...
Also, it ends on such a cliffhanger, because we don't actually know the results of the test.
Yeah.
At the end.
It's like just at the very end of the test, basically, is where the episode ends. Has a great ending too, but to start off even before that, kind of in order of kind of events that are going on, the first big thing is that Simone ends up going to the other test subjects, as well as Jason and Tahani.
Well, we should set up what they're doing, because coming up to the end of the test, they're still trying to get Brent to come around before the test ends. So they're really running into that. So they're trying to get Brent to come around. They think they can do that, but yeah, like as you started explaining, Simone throws a wrench into things, because she basically she doesn't like figure everything out, but it turns out she's been suspecting that there's been something off about the Good Place the whole time.
She's got a big conspiracy board she pulls out.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, she's like, I know this makes you look crazy, and John's like, looks crazy?
Yeah, looks crazy.
So, but it's cool because a lot of stuff comes out in this very moment when she's doing this, because she starts talking about that. John can't hold back his rumor mongering anymore.
No, he can't.
He
lets out about Jason.
Yeah. So he reveals the thing about Jason. Brent then reveals the best place.
Yeah, he reveals what they told him about the best place.
Which everybody just kind of looks at him like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And Simone uses these revelations as more proof that her conspiracy theory is correct.
Yeah. And so obviously this means now that, Tahani and Jason have returned to our main cast and have told them, okay, they're onto us. The jig's kind of up. We're at the very end of this test, but, you know, they're figuring everything out now.
I love it is like this also strains Simone and Chidi's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, Simone is trying to convince Chidi that there's something off, and Chidi is kind of denying it. He's like, no, if you know, I love it too, like the one part where like Chidi is like trying to rebut Simone's point. She's like, yeah, but you know, then you're correct. But if you think about Brent is, well, you're correct there too.
There's some cool stuff with that I want to get to a little bit later with Chidi and Simone's relationship and kind of like the whole soulmate lie kind of thing.
Yes,
but that comes in later, but it touches on some of the stuff that's happening here, which is you see that they have like pet names for each other. I think she calls him like Ducky or something, and
I love it, like the gossip guy, he's just like, oh my god, I can't, this is too much, I can't handle it. He's like, this is too much breaking news, I can't handle it. I gotta sit down for this. When they start revealing their pet names.
But yeah, so, but once they get back to the main group, Tahani and Jason, then they kind of reveal it. Eleanor is like, let's just call it a quits. Let's just stop and hope for the best at this point. You know, like we did good. Let's just see how things play out. I think they're gonna go okay. And then she said, let's just hope that, you know, we might have had a rocky end, but we started strong and we, even if we ended a little off, she says, like Facebook or America.
Yeah.
But, and then Michael's like, no, we have to do something. And then what's great is that Jason actually makes a coherent point.
Yes, I love it because Jason makes a coherent point by using football analogies.
Yeah. And Tawny's just kind of like shocked. like, Jason, that was coherent.
Yeah, Jason, that was actually coherent.
Later on, he says something else, another coherent point, and Tawny's like, looks at Eleanor and is like, I think he might have been replaced by a demon.
Yeah, I think he might have been, yeah.
But yeah, so basically, Jason and Michael are saying they need to do a Hail Mary. They need to do like one last big plan to kind of, get everything to make one big last play. Cause it's at the very end, let's just make one big play to kind of a big move.
Oh, the whole episode Michael's going on about being a magician.
A magician. Yeah, he wants to perform at a party. They're doing a 1 year of the Good Place anniversary for these people.
Yeah, 1 year anniversary for these people. Yeah, Michael wants to do magic tricks and Eleanor keeps shutting him down, saying it's lame.
I like that, Tahani was saying like, you know, we had, you know, good days, like that day when everything was made out of chocolate. And Jason's like, oh, that was awesome. He's like, I had a Reese's peanut butter cup and it was all chocolate.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, so they come up with some kind of a Hail Mary plan, but we're not really privy to it yet. And it cuts back to kind of Simone, and she and Chidi are kind of like, they're in Eleanor's office and they're snooping around, and they find the board of the, you know, with the emojis of saying like, oh, we're concerned about them. Okay, we have them in a good place. They're all four people are under the section of the board with the party emoji. That they achieved their goal. This is further proving Simone's point, and it's, you know, now, Chidi is also like, oh shit, this is all real, you know, like, what's going on? What are we gonna do? Best part here is Chidi finds Michael's song lyrics. See that? Where he found Michael's song lyrics that read, here's a trippy little ditty about a trendy, groovy city. Open up your crystal mind and we'll have a cosmic good time. And then Simone immediately responds like, see, that makes me think we're in hell.
Yeah. See, that makes me think we're now. Yeah. And it's great because, so Michael and Eleanor's big plan is basically at the party, they do a thing that happened in the first season where, like, a pit to hell opened up in the middle, and Brent falls in it.
He's hanging on the side of this. He doesn't fall through.
Side. And so basically, the plan hinges on everybody coming together and saving Brent, and that's gonna win the day for them at the end of the experiment, right?
So it doesn't quite work out.
It doesn't work out, no, because the idea was, like, Brent is so despicable that, yeah, sure, they could leave him. They're, because they point out, they said, why not Chidi? And he goes, well, because everybody's gonna want to save Chidi.
Yeah, because he could bounce a quarter off his ass.
Because you can bounce a quarter off it. But, Brent is like broccoli in a toilet.
Yeah. That was the great analogy that I think Jason ended up making.
Jason ended up making.
They said, what's the opposite of... it was the opposite of some great thing, and they said, like, oh, broccoli in a toilet.
Yeah.
But so they they pick that as the harder target to say, like, okay, you take the one that everybody hates, they find despicable, and you still have them group up to save, and that will get them all the good place points to finish strong. And so they have the group there hoping that that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, Simone, who's kind of like showing herself to not really be that great of a person,
right,
is like, no, screw that, let's go, let's leave. He's despicable anyways, it doesn't matter, let's just leave him.
Yeah, let's just leave
Chidi's
him.
like, no,
John,
clearly the right thing to do is stay here. John's like, no, sorry, Chidi, I'm out of here too.
Yeah, no, sorry, Chidi, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, so Simone and John take off, and Chidi ends up trying to rescue Brent himself, but right. Chidi, not being really well equipped in an emergency situation, just kind of ends up...
Falls into, he falls in too. So when Eleanor and Michael find them, they're both in the pit, and Eleanor and Michael get them out. And so they end up in Eleanor's office.
Well, we should say first off that when they realize that they're both in the pit and that their plan didn't work, Michael says he has one last ditch effort.
Oh, that's, yeah. Michael says, because at that point, Eleanor's like, well, we're forts.
Yeah.
And Michael's like, well, I have one more last ditch effort. And then we see Brent and Chidi in Michael/Eleanor's office, co-office, I guess now. And basically they leave Chidi and Brent alone to talk.
Well, before that, they let
Oh, yeah, Chidi, you're right, before that.
They do a little callback to season 1 again.
They do a little... Well, what's great about this scene is that Chidi pieces it together. Chidi is the one who comes out and says, this is the bad place.
And then you have Michael do his little evil giggle again, but Eleanor joining him.
Oh, no, it's even more. It's Eleanor and Michael both do an evil laugh at the same time.
Yeah. They do their little evil giggle laugh.
The double evil laugh. That's the best scene of the season.
The great callback to what was probably the best scene in season 1, with the reveal that it was the bad place all along and Michael's evil giggle laugh. But yeah, so they do that, and then they say, Michael and Eleanor are like, well, we're gonna take off now. The rest of the bad place are gonna come by soon to pick you up to take you to the real hell, where you'll be tortured for all eternity. Well, see you later. And they take off and leave them in the office together.
They leave them in the office, and it's still taking a while for it to sink into for Brent.
Brent's like, oh yeah, well, clearly I'm just gonna go to the best place, and everything's fine, because I'm a great person. And Chidi's like...
Yeah, and Chidi's just like, you are not a good person. Chidi has, like, officially lost all patience with Brent. And Brent is like, no, you must think I'm a good person. You saved me. And she's like, no, the only reason I save you is because I have this stupid moral code that makes me do things like save you.
And Brent says, you're my only friend, or like, you're my only friend here.
he's like, I'm not your friend.
Yeah, so I'm not your friend. Don't you get it? You're a bad person.
Yeah, don't you get Chidi's like trying to talk sense into him and is not hitting him. And like,
well, but at that point,
counting down.
But at that point, like, Brent just goes in a full mental breakdown.
Oh yeah, well, it's not registering for Brent, and the clock's counting down, and Michael is, and you see Brent, he stands up and he starts like struggling.
Yeah.
And at that point, Michael's looking at him and saying, "Come on, Brent, come on, Brent, come to the conclusion we want you to come to." Like the wheels are turning, and Brent just starts stuttering and going, "No, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad person." Like, and you see like he's really struggling.
He's really, really struggling, and then finally...
He's really struggling. And finally he turns around and he says, "No, Chidi, I just want to say something." Says, "Chi, I'm sorry." And then it freezes because it's the end of the experiment.
Yeah, he says, "Look, Chidi, whatever happens next, I need to say this to you. I am so, and it just ends.
Yes.
The implication being that he was going to say sorry, but, this is Brent after all, so he could say something that completely misses the point instead.
Right. He could have just said, "I'm so great."
I'm so over this trying to blame me, We
don't know. So now this is the cliffhanger because we don't know what's going to happen now because it looked like Brent was going to genuinely apologize at the end of the experiment, but since he was only in the middle of saying what he said, we don't know if A, it counts, or we don't know B, if he really was going to go through with an apology.
So it kind of freezes. Brent and Chidi disappear in like a flash of light, basically, and then Janet shows up with a margarita, and she says, "I'm sorry, Eleanor. You told me to show up when the test was over with this." And Eleanor just kind of takes a big gulp right from the pitcher. And, that's pretty much it. Like, we don't really know how things worked out, but it doesn't feel great. Like, it feels like they were on the edge of discovery, but he never actually said it. So they don't really feel like they're in a great position with the test.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, so this is classic Good Place because we end on a cliffhanger with our heroes in a precarious position where we know that when it comes back, there's going to be a twist. There's going to be some major twist, and the storyline's going to change. But the thing is, we can't predict what that change is going to be, what the flip is going to be. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen from here.
Yeah, this is almost like a season finale kind of ending.
Yeah, this is a season finale ending.
In the middle of the season.
In the middle of the season. Yeah, so I'm thinking whatever happens here, the back half of the season is going to be completely different from the first half.
Yeah.
It's almost going to be like 2 seasons in one.
Yeah, so we're going to have to see what ends up happening next, how they end up addressing things. We're probably going to end up seeing the judge again, who we haven't seen in many episodes. I think we've seen her in like 1 episode this season. So we're probably going to see her again. And, it'll be interesting to see, like, where we go from here and how they're going to wrap this up. Because this is the final season of the entire series. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's a Good Place. One last thing. Best line of dialogue in the episode is Janet saying, "Just after midnight, in order to reset my processing power, I will be violently eating my Janet babies. I'll advise no one to look directly at me."
Yes. Which, violently eating my... It's like, damn, okay.
Those are by the way, that's her Janet babies are the other residents, the fake residents.
Yeah, the fake residents.
So now you have the image in your head of Janet violently eating them.
Like I told you before we started the podcast, this was probably my favorite episode of Mr. Robot of the season and my favorite episode of The Good Place of the season. So 2 great television episodes in 1 week. What more can you ask for?
It kind of almost seems like, wow, how did they line up both of these like great episodes of the seasons on this one thing? But do you know why they did that? Because we're going into November sweeps.
That's true, you're right. Going into November
So those of you that are too young to remember kind of TV structural things from the pre-streaming days of television, there's this thing called sweeps, which is when television always tries to kind of put their best foot forward on all of their shows as like a way to like bring in more advertising dollars and stuff. Like this is their highlighted point. This is their, you know, their back to school night, basically. To use like a school analogy, you know, this is when you put everything forward and say, look, this is how great everything can be on these shows. So yeah, we're getting that sweeps effect. But that's it. That was The Good Place and Mr. Robot. We'll be talking about both of those shows again next week. And as I mentioned, for the foreseeable future until both of those shows have ended, because they're both on their final seasons. But until then, here's what's coming up in the week ahead. We're recording this on Saturday, November 9th. On Friday, November 8th, Wild District returned to Netflix. Tonight, on Saturday, November 9th, Little Things returned to Netflix, or I think debuted on Netflix. I think that's new. On Sunday, November 10th, Dublin Murders comes to Starz, Shameless to Showtime, Back to Life to Showtime, and Rick and Morty to Adult Swim / Cartoon Network. I know a lot of people are probably frothing at the mouth for that one. On Monday, November 11th, Chief of Staff comes to Netflix. On Tuesday, November 12th, The Mandalorian to Disney Plus. That means that's Disney Plus Day, basically. So you also get The World According to Jeff Goldblum, Forky Asked a Question, and a bunch of other Disney stuff. So everybody waiting for Disney Plus stuff, that's this Tuesday is when it launches. On Thursday, November 14th, The Stranded comes to Netflix. On Friday, November 15th, Dollface to Hulu, The Man in the High Castle returns to Amazon, Avlu the Yard to Netflix, and The Club to Netflix. On Sunday, November 17th, The Crown to Netflix and Ray Donovan on Showtime. On Wednesday, November 20th, Mad About You is returning for a miniseries conclusion. That's the latest 90s retro sitcom throwback. But this one's like a miniseries. It's just like a single season kind of thing. A short season. On Thursday, November 21st, Cheat to Sundance Now, Mortel to Netflix, and No Activity on CBS All Access, also known as the Star Trek spin-off series official streaming service. And then on Friday, November 22nd, The Accident on Hulu, The Feed on Amazon Prime, Dolly Parton's Heartstrings, which is, I believe, an anthology series on Netflix, The Dragon Prince on Netflix, High Seas on Netflix, and Nobody's Looking on Netflix. So that's what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. Thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best